It's all about adding life to days, whether or not days can be added to life. Hello, my name is Dr. Noreen Chan and I'm a palliative care specialist. I practice at the National University Hospital. I get asked that question a lot. To put it very simply, palliative care is a specialized approach to care for people with serious illness. Now, what is different about this type of approach as compared to what you usually see in the rest of healthcare is that we don't focus on any one disease. We actually look at the whole person over and above your disease. So we ask people and their families what's important to them. And then we bring together a whole team of people with different skills and disciplines to try to give people the best quality of life that's possible. Now, it doesn't mean that we have to stop treating your disease. Now, palliative care can be an extra layer of care on top of disease-related treatment. It's all about adding life to days, whether or not days can be added to life.
Oh, yeah, of course, I'm a great supporter of basic palliative care for the generalists, for everyone and every specialist, not just the palliative care specialist. Because the practice of palliative care is applicable in every setting. It's applicable to a wide variety of different types of patients, not just the classical oncology patient, but any patient with major illness, be it chronic or even a sudden severe illness. So I think every physician has a role to at least provide basic palliative care or in the least recognize palliative care needs and help this patient with the appropriate referrals and connections to those who can provide it.
We always tell people that we never give up on patients. That's a very important perspective to communicate to the patients and the families. I think it's also very important that the physicians managing the patients also have this perspective and this conviction, right? That this kind of care does not mean we are giving up on people. In fact, I often tell my ward teams that when it comes to patients approaching the end of life, I typically spend more time with this group than patients who may be so-called relatively well or patients who are still being treated to aim to cure them in a conventional sense, right? And the reason is because I find that this group, we still need to spend a whole lot of effort to look out for the things that matter to them at that stage.
So in the hospice, we have 3 settings. We have inpatient care, home care, as well as day care. In my work, I'm mainly in the home care setting, so I see a lot of patients who prefers to be at home until their very end of life. Yeah. So what I do on a daily basis is I support the patients and the family members psycho-emotionally. So especially in terms of patients who do not have family members or they do not have a close next of kin to support them at home. So in that case, our team, the doctor, the nurse, the social worker becomes their only line of social support to support them until the end of life. Yeah. So we also have patients with very close family support and they are able to cope with the demands of caregiving at home. But at the same time, the emotional aspects of it is really very daunting because they need to anticipate the impending departure of their loved one, and sometimes in Singaporean context, I feel that a lot of family members, like in our culture, we are not used to saying things like I love you, I forgive you, and I'm sorry. And a lot of times, like even towards the end, they are still not open to this kind of heart-to-heart conversations. So in that case, palliative care, for our role, we help to bring up the unspoken words, and we help to really bring the family together, to come together as a family unit, and also also facilitate this kind of end-of-life conversation so that everyone have a closure, and to also honor the patient's preferences and values at the end of life. So for example, we also support conversations such as funeral rites. So in cases like family who have different kind of religion, we also need to facilitate conversations of what the patients want best instead of trying to accommodate what the family wants. So there's inevitably there will always be conflict, but at the end of the day, we try to let the family members see that every one of us wants the best for the patient, and that's how we align together.
One example would be quite specific to the emergency department is the sudden severe illness. For example, a patient that comes in with a major bleed in the brain, and this is deemed to be incurable or not operable, and then we offer continue to offer care and support to this family and this patient. So we allow the patient to be moved to a private area, allow families to visit in the emergency department where there's usually restricted visitation. We focus on the patient being comfortable and symptoms being treated, offer the support of a social worker. So that's one example. The more classic example would be elderly patients that come to us on what we call the chronic frailty trajectory, and the treatments that are to be given to this patient should be tailored to this patient rather than our standard aggressive resuscitative approach, which is largely based on tests and interventions, which may not be appropriate for this patient.
When it comes to my own practice, I usually don't use the specific term palliative care because, like I was saying earlier, I don't think that there is a line between care and palliative care, right? I think that the philosophy or the approach of palliative care has a place of influence in the general delivery of good medical care for most of our patients, right? So I don't think that there is a line that I say that, okay, I'm going to start you on some palliative care, or I'm going to start you on some supportive care or something like that, right? To me, all of this is part of, it's just part of excellent medical care, which we all aim to give to all patients.
So this is a challenge. It really does depend on what people have heard about palliative care before. Now, I have to say that over the last 10 years, awareness of palliative care has increased. So when I tell people that I'm from the palliative care service or that I'm a palliative care specialist, there are fewer people now who look at me blankly. The unfortunate thing is that sometimes they look at me and I can see from their facial expression that they don't think very well of us, probably because they think, oh, these are the people who are going to come and talk to me about death and die. So how I normally explain my service to them is this: I'm here to help improve your quality of life, or I'm here to learn about what problems you're experiencing and how I can help you. What I hope is that people will see palliative care as something that enhances their illness experience and takes nothing away from them. I don't want to see us as taking away hope, but actually giving hope that they can live as well as possible, that they can be comfortable, and that families will be supported, and they can try to make every day the best day. Now, I want to borrow from a couple of people whom I respect very much. And one is the author Paulo Coelho, who really talks about how human beings are very contradictory. You know, how when we are growing up, we spend all our health to earn money, and then later on we must spend all our money to get back our health. What he did say is that human beings have a tendency to live as if they will never die, and die as if they had never lived. What palliative care teaches us to do is to not fall into that trap. And secondly, what I hope that we can do, and what we hope that we teach all our colleagues to do, is to really help our patients live as well as they can. And to borrow from the Singapore Hospice Council is to live well before leaving well. So many of our patients have been on a very long journey, very bumpy ride. The plane is got to come into land. And at the end, when it does come into land, we have the responsibility, all of us, to give them a soft and gentle landing. That's what we want for each of us. That's what we want for the people we love. And therefore, for healthcare workers, that's what we owe society.